So I am Jim Herbst. I am the programs manager for the City of Norfolk's Department of Neighborhood Development in the Division of Neighborhood Engagement. We are glad you're all here. We had about 30 people signed up, so that's a good sign. And I realize people will still be calling in. We are recording this session, as I mentioned. Everybody's doing a great job so far. I think everybody at this point is familiar with good virtual meeting etiquette and muting yourself to avoid background noise. We've all had enough experience at it at this point. But in case, I hope no one will be offended if there's background noise and you forget and I mute you. Hope you won't be offended. Also, at the end, we have our NBN Academy evaluation. Before you leave this evening, I'll put that on the polling feature. And if you don't mind filling that out, we'd appreciate it. I want to welcome Mr. Clanton here this evening. Mr. Clanton is well known. He is on the Board of Education and is very active in knowing his area. I also want to say, and maybe I shouldn't mention this, but when somebody first approached me 2 years ago about doing a parliamentary procedure course with the NBN Academy, I thought, oh gosh, that does not sound very exciting. It sounds like it would be as exciting as reading through the IRS manual for 1040. But I was wrong. One of many occasions where I was wrong. Mr. Clinton proved me wrong. He's a very interactive instructor. He's certified at this, he does this, and he does a very professional job at it. So we are very happy he did this. He did 2 sessions for us previously. I sent you the email with the WebEx login that everybody logged in this evening. You should have the link to the Civic League guide that he did for us before. That was, I think, very kind of him. I want to mention that Mr. Clanton is not being paid, nor do any of our instructors get paid. So we appreciate the time that he's putting in this evening. And we'll turn it over to you, Mr. Clanton. Also, I wanted to check with you how you would like to handle question and answers, whether you don't mind if people just interrupt you or if you would prefer people use the chat feature. I cannot.
Look, I've literally been in Zoom purgatory all day. So it's like, no, please, Mr. Clanton, I have a question. Hold up. I'd much rather you ask them as we go through. That helps out a lot. So yeah, as we go through, it's fine.
All right, very good. I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Okay, I want to share my screen. Okay, there it is. I see it. They're kind of all similar around here. Let me see what we got here. There we go. Are you all seeing my screen yet? Great.
There we go.
I have a wireless. I think it died on me, so we will get there. All right, maybe I want to see everybody. Great. Let me open this up here. All right. There's everybody. Oh, sorry. Like I said, I'm maneuvering with my keypad mouse, and that's a little different for me. All right, so basics of parliamentary procedures. So how many of you all are familiar with parliamentary procedure? Okay, we're responding just like, no. All right, here we go. Scale of 1 to 10. Who's a 10 in the room? Anybody? Okay. How about a 9? 8? Okay, all right. 5 to 7. Somebody in there? Okay. All right. Okay, that's not a problem. All right, 3 to 5. Okay, or just one of those folks like, I don't really want to be bothered with this at all. Or as I call my other folks, how many of you all know your church Parliamentary procedure. Yeah, I grew up on that.
Yeah, I do.
What? What are we talking about? So I'm going to give you the basics of parliamentary procedure. I do try to make this very interactive. Principal Cable, how are you? Good to see you. Do I see another one of our principals in here? I do. All right. I'm all excited now. My Ward 3 family's here. So based on parliamentary procedure, we're gonna go through here, like I said. Well, is that we just got a new edition of Robert Rules of Order. We are now on the 12th edition of Robert Rules of Order. There we go. Which every 10 years they put out a new edition. And I will tell you, it's kind of like a cliff note of it, of all the changes they made in it. And there are 8 pages worth of changes to Robert Rules of Order. Can anybody take a guess as to what they may have added to Robert Rules of Order? What's something new that we're all dealing with right now?
COVID.
Okay, so what is COVID kind of forcing us to do?
Social
Virtual.
Virtual, because normally you all would have your Civic League meetings where?
in the building.
In building, in person, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So this is force. This is what Robert Rules of Order really does. It takes real life world situations and applies it. Nobody was really doing virtual meetings. I mean, you may have had some things, but your civic leagues weren't really doing that, or your school organizations. Society and situations are forcing us to make changes. Our Rules of Order is filling in the gaps on how you do certain things, particularly with electronic meetings. So that's a big portion of this. Jim, I will send an updated handbook for civic leagues that will incorporate a lot of those new things in there, and we'll talk about a little bit of those today. Let's see.
Thank you very much.
Not a problem. I was looking back at when I last did that. Great. There we go. So y'all, excuse me, I'm looking over to the side. I got my large screen here. Age is starting to catch up with me, and these eyes ain't the way they used to be. So workshop objectives today. We're going to state the purposes of following parliamentary procedure, recognize the 5 basic principles of because there really is a way of doing that. Recognize various methods of voting and differentiate the types of motions, because there are all different types. Now, how many of you all have actually seen me in some of y'all seen me in a school board meeting? Okay. So I'm a stickler on certain things when it comes to rules. I mean, it's kind of how it happens. When you're the parliamentarian in the room, you just kind of... Other things about parliamentary procedure is to do what? Save time, right? Because I don't like being in an 8-hour school board meeting. I love to get to work and get home. And none of you all want to be in an 8 hours meeting, do you? You want to do what you need to do and get home. So what is parliamentary procedure? Parliamentary procedure refers to the rules of democracy. That is the common accepted way in which a group of people come together. They present and discuss possible courses of actions and makes decisions. How many of you have heard the term in relation to the United States Senate called the filibuster? All right. Can anybody want to try to take a stab at what do you? Anybody?
Faking.
Say again.
Faking. Not being for real. Misleading.
Okay. So the filibuster is okay. Go ahead. Hey, Mr. Chris, how you doing? Are you on mute? Okay.
Filibuster means it's a delaying tactic used by one side or the other to keep from discussing what it is, what the topic is.
Exactly. It is a delayed topic. And when you kind of look at it, the way the United States Congress is kind of set up is that things kind of pass through the House and they're traditionally slowed down in the Senate. So they spend more time and they melt over things. And the filibuster is what we consider a standing rule. It's a rule that they have created themselves. It's not in the Constitution, a rule that governs that particular house. And so they say in order for certain bills and certain things to move forward, you have to have 60 senators to vote on it. If not, you got to sit there. Okay. And that's how now a lot of stuff isn't getting done. So I'll use that as a reference, just kind of standing rules. We'll get to that a little bit later. Jim,
we said we'd run till 7:30.
okay, I'm not gonna try to keep y'all here that long. We're gonna keep moving. But I just want to make sure so that I don't get off of my tangent of my story. So what is parliamentary procedure? Fundamentally, parliamentary procedure defines how groups of people, no matter how formal or informal, can most effectively meet and make decisions in a fair, consistent manner, make good use of everybody's time. Even a basic background of parliamentary procedure will help you move things along. Just knowing how to make a motion will help you move things along. Objectives of parliamentary procedure establishes the purposes and structure of an organization, who the members are in the organization, specific lead structures. And even in some of your organizations, you have people who have membership entitles them to certain things. If you have a voting and a non-voting membership or an ex officio person, so let's say you have an ex officio member. Okay, can anybody take a stab at what an ex officio member is? It's kind of spelled ex officio, extra official. So you may have in a situation where you have an ex officio. So I see some principles that are here. You probably involved in your civic leagues, right? Because they're right around your community. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're on their boards, but you are an ex officio. You're there because you have a particular role, and you can add to it. And in some organizations, they allow ex officios to be voting and non-voting. So that's just kind of a general kind of get thrown out another way of kind of saying how things are structured and set up. Purposes of parliamentary procedure. So it's to give every member a chance to be heard. We talked about that, and that's important. You will hear me say the term that it's the right of the minority to is the right of the majority to govern, but the right of the minority to be heard. Okay, it is the right of the majority to govern, but it is the right of the minority to be heard. Why is it important for the minority to be heard? Y'all got to warm up for me. I know it's raining outside.
That's a part of democracy.
Say that again for me.
That's part of democracy.
It's part of democracy. At the end of the day, the majority is going to prevail. However, it's a minority still to be heard, to have an opportunity for their voices and their opinions to be heard. You want to allow everyone an opportunity to participate. This is why you have debate, and you have you have debate and discussion to establish and also maintain order of a meeting. Why is it important to have a structured order of a meeting? Be all over the place. Y'all be there all day, right? So as if anybody knows there's a gospel singer, her name is Kim Burrell, and there was a YouTube video they had out there where she was singing, talking about a run. You know, if you're a musician, you know, hear somebody saying something, it's and she was saying that there's something in the middle that you just kind of go, there's something in the middle when you sing that kind of rolls through that one. So when I look at that, there is a beginning, stuff in the middle in a meeting, and then there's an ending. A meeting is always going to have an opening, call to order. It's going to have other items in the middle, and then it is going to have an ending, which is called a what? What's the ending of a meeting? What's the term? Starts with an A.
Adjournment.
Adjournment. There you go. So what would be the term to start?
Call to order.
There you go. All right. The other thing is to prevent confusion when discussing meetings agendas. That's important. And we'll talk about what some of those terms are to bring things back together. And then most importantly is to keep the meeting moving. Nobody wants to be sitting in a meeting forever. You want to get those things. So You want to discuss one subject at a time, allow discussion of each idea presented, treat all members with justice and courtesy. Sometimes, feelings and things can get mixed in there, but you want to always treat with respect. This is why, in many cases, you will see individuals direct their comments to the chair. If you ever listen in to Senate debate in the United States Senate, they always address everything to Mr. President or Madam President, whoever the presiding officer is there. Same thing we try to do here in the school board, Madam Chair, Mr. Chair, whoever is sitting in the presiding officer position. Why do you want to address your remarks to the chair and not necessarily to another member directly?
Because they're the leader of the meeting.
They're the leader, but there's another reason. We all human.
So it's not personal.
Respect.
Said it. Because it's
Respect.
not what?
So it's not deemed as a personal attack.
Exactly. So if you say, Madam Chair, I agree with my colleague. It's different than you saying, and I'm gonna pick on you, Miss Christopher, because I see you. Charlene's idea was just as stupid as I don't know what, and I don't know why she's sitting up here talking about it. Now that's some people say that might be fighting words, right? So we keep it non-personal and we keep it to the chair. Carry out the rules of majority, respect the rights of minority. I mentioned that. Bring together the wishes of the group. And this is sometimes challenging. That's why you will hear informal and formal meetings, and we'll talk about small of organizations because those are important, and how they do certain things are a little bit different. So who uses parliamentary procedure? Government organizations, the U.S. Congress, I've made mention, state legislatures, city and county councils, school boards, neighborhood and homeowners associations, corporations, board of directors, shareholder meetings, nonprofit organizations, charitable organizations, fraternal organizations, churches, clubs, and professional organizations. All of these groups use some form or another of parliamentary procedure. And you can make the determination as to how strict you want to be on it and how lax. So who is it? We've talked about it. It's the official rule book of our Rules of Order, newly revised. We're now in the 12th edition. But it was written by a U.S. Army general. His name was Henry Martin Robert. I began my Rules of Order. I was in America, TSA, technology. My other classmates reading Goosebumps. I was fascinating reading Robert Rules of Order. To me, it was just interesting just to look at how things move around. But one of the things that he says is where there's no law, but every man does what is right in his own eyes, there's at least the real liberty. Where there's no law, but every man does what is right in their own eyes, there's the least of real liberty. And I think that we've had a little bit of seeing that when people can just do what they want to do without following the rules that we have. So what is our Rules of Order? This is what it looks like. I wanted to show you all, so that kind of goldish manila, I guess you want to say ivory book, that's the new edition that's out there for you now. That is the 12th in that you can go out and get, and it gets really to the nitty-gritty of things for you so that you don't have to necessarily go out and get the big book if you don't want it. But this book has been around since 1876, okay? So rules that govern your organization. This is important because there is a hierarchy in how we look at our rules and laws. So the rules of a hierarchy is just like this: federal, state, local. Constitution, bylaws, and in some organizations you may not have a constitution, but you may order. Parliamentary authority, which that parliamentary authority, and custom. That's how we do things here in our, as I say, how you do things in your house. It may be customary that you do the Pledge of Allegiance. It may be customary that there's an invocation at the beginning of your meeting. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to be something that's in your rules, but it's just what you do customary. I mean, it may be customary in your specifically that you have a time that you greet your guests and everyone stands up. That's a custom. That's not necessarily a rule. However, you may have a standing rule that says that you have to write down your motions and submit them to the secretary. That could be a standing rule. Now, who creates standing rules for the organization? Anybody want to take a guess?
The governing body.
Governing body. Now, could that governing body be your membership?
It might depend on what kind of organization that you're talking about. If
You
it
were
has
right.
a national organization, then that would be your governing body. And then anything that you do then has to conform to what that governing body's standing rules would be.
Exactly. So I'm just going to pause on this one for a second. How many of you all have some type of executive committee? Okay. So your rules or your bylaws state that the executive committee can act on behalf of the membership or the board in between meetings. Okay. But whatever action that the executive committee has taken, the full membership or the body, depending on what's in your bylaws, has to ratify that. Okay. Why would that be important to be able to have some type of smaller group to be able to act on behalf of a larger organization in between a major meeting?
Maybe some combination of speed, efficiency, and, to be perfectly honest, that's may not necessarily be such a big decision that you need a larger body to approve it.
Exactly. How many of you all have a full-time executive director on staff? Well, I know you do, Charlene. But many of you don't have paid staff. So you are the day-to-day operation. Somebody's checking the mailbox. Somebody's got to write a check for something. Somebody's got to do all these things. So you may compartmentalize things and say, okay, this is the body that's going to do things in between. But at some point in time, we've got to ratify what they've done if it's something major. And you can also say to what powers or authority you're giving them and what powers and authority you don't give them that have to rest with your organization. So just kind of keep that in mind. But there is a hierarchy to things. And this is important when we come back. Keep this in mind. And I'll just throw this out here. Can your civic league or your organization create any type of rule that would be in conflict with federal, state, or local law?
No.
No. What about the homeowners association? This is our part. This is our area. This is our dominion. Can you create something that's still in conflict with local, state, or federal law?
Unless it's not in the city or locality.
Now, I know that a couple years back, Virginia kind of tightened up their the laws when it came to eminent domain and so forth. Because, how many of y'all remember the expansion that was going on at Old Dominion? There was a lot of land and things being acquired for that project. And so kind of had to slow that down there. You in Virginia, they give you a lot of the homeowner has a lot more, the property owner has a lot more rights in a lot of other places. And so you can't just come in without a real reason. So let's get to some parliamentary procedure basics. So what's a quorum? What's up there? Just the necessary people that need to be there in order to conduct a meeting, right? So some of you all may only need 10 people or 12 people. You need half your membership, or it's whatever you all decide in your governing body, your rules, okay? And what is a majority? It's as simple as that. It's half plus one. That's all it takes, a simple majority. So on my 7-member school board, what's a majority? Don't everybody say it all at once. 4. 4 people, that's it. All it takes. Thank you. So how do you calculate a 2/3 vote? So I'm giving you all here, this because this comes up a lot. So another term for 2/3 vote is what? So we have a majority, which is
Majority.
just Yeah, a majority is just half plus one, right? So that's just what we call a simple majority. 2/3 vote is what we consider a supermajority. That means that you've got a little bit more. And sometimes, what you will see in Robert's Rule, and I want to say sometimes, but anytime that you are taking away the rights of a member, you're going to typically see a 2/3 vote in order to do that. Okay, that's because you're taking away the right of somebody to do something. So I give you two ways of being able to calculate that. So if you're ever in a meeting, you need to calculate a 2/3 vote. One way of doing that is to divide the number of votes by 3 and then multiply it by 2. Okay, or a very simple way of that is taking the negative votes that were cast on it. Yep, you want to take double that negative vote number, and then see whether or not that number is higher than the number that actually received. Let me get that right. To double the number of negative votes cast. Okay, if the motion receives that number or a higher number, then it passes the necessary votes. Okay, and so that's how you know that you got a 2/3. All right, so what I got here, parliamentary procedure basics. Presiding officer can be referred to as Mr. or Madam President or Mr. or Madam Chairperson, whatever you may call it. You know, in fraternities and sororities, they have different names, boss lists and all these other things. So whatever your organization calls your presiding officer. Just remember, everyone gets a chance for a voice and opinion and debate, and everyone gets a chance to vote. Unless, who wouldn't be able to vote in your organization? Go ahead, Charlene.
It all depends if there's people can talk, but then all of a sudden somebody may say only paid members can't talk if that's one of the rules that you have. So therefore, if all the membership or all the persons there are not paid members, then they can be excluded from voting.
I'm gonna tell you, when it comes to civic leagues, I have heard this in the past. People are good for coming in, say, but they ain't paid their dues. They don't have no vote. Or there's a certain amount of time the person look, this is important. You gotta make sure that it's clearly identified in your governing document what gives a person an ability to vote. Like many of you all may say, does a person have to live in your neighborhood to be a part of your civic league? Anybody?
No.
Okay. So this person, as long as they pay their dues, they can be a member?
But it still should be spelled out in the bylaws.
Exactly. So whatever that body has decided, that civic league or that group or whatever has decided that we're going to accept that you don't have to live in our neighborhood, but you have to live in the city of Norfolk in order and pay dues. You can be a part of our civic league. But because you could have somebody who likes to be a super civic league person, and they want to be a part of everybody's civic league. Have y'all ever encountered that? Somebody want to be in everybody's stuff? Leave it alone. So let's go up here. This is a method to vote on any motion. Depends on the situation and the bylaws of your organization. By voice, the chairman asks those in favor to say aye, those opposed to say no, and any member may move for an exact count. What's the term for an exact count? Anybody want to take a stab at it? All right. Anybody ever heard the term division of the House? Or division? That's a parliamentary term for, I like for a count, a physical count. Because most of the time you hear people say, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, say nay. And you may have some organizations may allow you to abstain, particularly if individuals are recording the vote. You can do roll call. That means each member answers. We do roll call on the school board or division. I had that down there, and that's site verification. So sometimes you may hear just as many yes and no votes, and you can't make a clear delineation between the two. Or You will hear me say that Robert Rules of Order should never be used as a weapon, but I want to say kind of like tactic, because I remind people all the time, he or she who knows the rules controls the room. And when you agree, because a tactic could be used for a division of the House. I just want to get my other colleagues to be recorded as to what their vote was. I don't want you to slide by and just be in the yays. I want it on the record, what you voted on. And that's what a lot of times you may have in the House and in Congress and things. They want to know what people's records are and how they voted on particular items. Or by ballot, by electronic voting, and by general consent. General consent, I'll just start from the bottom. That just means everybody's in agreement. There's no objections. You know, maybe we did a resolution to recognize Dr. Anna Dodson, and I asked that it be accepted without objection. Well, that's means it wasn't a second, it wasn't a main motion or anything there. The body just went with it. Electronic voting. I know that the city of Portsmouth and the city of Virginia Beach, they kind of meet in their city council chambers. And so their council chambers have electronic voting. So they hit a button to cast their vote. It's a little bit different now because they're all meeting virtually and they're all over. But you may have a system in here that you record the vote. The Virginia way. That's considered an electronic vote. And then, of course, ballot is old school. Just give me a piece of paper and let's write it down, and we kind of share it that way. So parliamentary procedure in motion. We said that you would identify Mr. or Madam President or Mr. Chairman. That's by the chair. The chair recognizes the member by announcing the person's name and the title, or in small assemblies, just by nodding to them. Do you all stand up all the time? Or do any of y'all ever stand up when you need to make a motion at your meetings? Sandy, I see you there. Sandy, can you come off mute for me for a second? If you
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
I can hear you great. So Sandy, about how many people do you have in your meeting? Like in a given meeting?
9 council members.
9 council members. Okay. So that would be considered a small deliberative body. Okay. So it would be kind of awkward, y'all standing up at the table to make a motion. Your chair would probably just kind of nod over and say, okay, so Sandy, I recognize you to speak. Okay. So that's one of the relations from hardcore Robert Rules of Order and then deliberative body type of things. Okay. Thanks for standing. So
yes, sir.
Let me go ahead to the next one here. No problem. So bring your motion before the assembly. So now you've been recognized. And is that Francis up there? Francis, can you come off mute? Are you able to come off mute? Must have, don't. Oh, and just as y'all start turning off cameras, I still got names.
Okay. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Thank you. So we so to make a motion, so I move that, or I move 2. So Francis, is that normally how you make a motion?
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever so moved?
Yes,
Somebody
and it's not
that?
allowed.
Thank you. I heard it all the time growing up, the whole time in my Baptist church. Deacons would get up there and say, so move what? What are we talking about? Why is so move not an appropriate motion, Francis?
I'm sorry.
All right, can you say it again? I said, why is so move not an appropriate motion?
I'm not sure why.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and break it back here. Oh, Francis, hold on a second. I see Charlene's got her hand up. Go ahead, Charlene. You want to help out?
Yeah, when you say so moved, if you're taking the minutes, what do you so move when you go back and look at the minutes? You can be very specific about what the motion is, and so therefore, so moved could be, I'm so moved that we go to Florida. But in the minutes, you won't have that we so moved we went to Florida. You may have said you want to go to Jamaica. So for precise record keeping, the motion should say, I move that, and so moved drives me up the wall. But anyway, thank you for saying so moved is not appropriate.
You're right in line on that one. Not only for the record keeping, but also for the people in the room. Because the next thing that's going to happen is once you've gotten a second, you're going to have discussion, but you need to know what you're discussing. And then more. Then that's just to keep everybody flowing together. So once you've gotten a motion, you've gotten a second, and this is a main motion, then you will ask, is there any questions or any discussion? This is the opportunity to speak against it. Now, when you are done talking, does anybody know the term that I'm ready to vote? Anybody know that term? See all these.
Call the question.
Oh,
Call for the
yes.
question.
Yes, call the question or question. That means it's time to end debate, and you need to move forward with that one. Now, the presiding officer can call the question because they're the presiding, so they're controlling. But in general senses, when you call the question, typically you need to have the rest of the body to agree with it, along with your call to call the question, and they believe that it's time to end debate, then you don't need that. The presiding officer can just repeat, yes, I'm ready to call the question. Please call the roll, or we'll go ahead and proceed with the vote. Okay. Let's see what we got. So discussion and debate. So to an item. Pop the screen. The maker, that's one thing that gets me, and I have to go back, is if you make the motion, you should be able to speak to it first, not somebody else. You need to set the discussion, because everything needs to be in that discussion about what we're about to vote on, right? And if you don't, and you allow somebody else to do it, they may take you on a totally different journey that you want to be on. All remarks should be addressed to the chair, not to members. We talked about that. Debate is defined to the merits of the motion. So if you're talking about buying buses, you can't then start talking about a one-to-one technology plan. Point of order. That would be a point of order, and the respect that we need to get back to, or your discussion of the items are not germane. A debate can only be closed by order of assembly, and that's by 2/3 there, or by the chair if no one seeks the floor for further debate. Okay. Consider the motion. So classes of motions, there are main motions, and normally I have, and it's not up here, just imagine building a house with me here. Main motion is the foundation of the house, okay? You have subsidiary motions, which may be the walls of the house. Privileged motions begin to be the roof of that house. Incidental motions are kind of being the windows and the doors, okay? And then you got bring back motions, which is the back door of the house, okay? Because you may have gone through the front, but you may place something down on the table and you need to come back on. These motions, they're all different, and this is when people get a little confused. But we're going to have fun. This is a parliamentary procedure, okay? All businesses are considered with the main motion, and this is where you typically say, I move to, or I move that, okay? I'm gonna come back to it. Dr. Tatum, I'm gonna come back to you because I'm gonna have some of y'all practice with me on some of these motions. Go. This is showing the main motion, and then you can have subsidiary motions and privileged motions. Subsidiary and privileged motions take precedence over this main motion. Main motions are the basis of everything, but everything else can be laid on top of them to do something else, okay? And we'll see some examples of what those are next. We apply it to another motion for the purposes of modifying it, delaying action on it, or disposing of it. Who can give me one of the most? It starts with an A.
by addition.
Addition
Move
or
to add something to the motion by addition.
addition or amendment. Or to
yeah.
amend it. Yep. So a perfect example, let's say I want to buy new school buses. But Ms. Christopher, you're on the board with me. You say, okay, well, that's kind of vague. How many school buses do we want to buy? So you could amend the motion by saying, I want to buy 10 school buses. Okay. And that would be your amendment. And guess what, y'all? Have you ever heard an amendment to the amendment to the amendment to the amendment? It can happen. And that's where people get lost. So, gotta about this. If you're the presiding officer, you got to unpack this thing. Okay. So you got a main motion. We want to buy buses. There's an amendment to that main motion. We define how many buses we want to buy. But let's say another person said, well, I don't want a yellow bus. I want a blue bus. So they make another amendment. Okay. Well, we got to vote on each one of those amendments to get back to the main motion. So the blue amendment, everybody votes on it and says, no, we don't want blue buses. That fails. So now we're going to vote on the amendment to the main motion, which says we're going to buy 10 buses. That passes. So now the presiding officer is going to present to the body the motion as amended. That kind of makes sense, or did I lose all here? I'll show you some other examples. All right. So just kind of keep with that. That's what a subsidiary is. So here we go. These are all the things that you could do with a subsidiary motion. Postpone indefinitely. Postpone indefinitely is a tactic to kill something. I'm just going to say, it's an idea. I don't want to touch it. We're done with it. Indefinite means we're not touching it. Just going to make some clarifications to it. Commit or refer to a committee is a method of leading action on something. To look into this, so we're going to send it to a committee. Okay, postpone to a certain time or lay on the table. Postpone to a certain meeting. This is our meeting here today. All right, there's going to be an adjournment. But if I say I want to postpone an action on something to a certain time, I am saying that I want to postpone action on this item outside of this meeting. Do what? What's that other A word at the end? We got that bookcase. We call the meeting to order and we what? Want to end the meeting. Adjournment.
Adjourn.
Yep. So if you lay something on time about two totally different things. Lay on the table means that you have to dispose of that item before you adjourn that meeting. You have to take it off the table and you got to do something with it. You're either going to send it to a committee or you're going to postpone it to another time. But there's a difference. Postpone to a certain time is already saying we're going to deal with this at a later time outside of this meeting after adjournment. But if you lay something on the table, you have got to take care of it. You got to do something with it before you adjourn. If you adjourn the meeting and leave the item on the table, it's gone. Okay, you have to bring it up. Okay. Any questions on that one? You understand me on that one? I know it's a bit challenging. Normally, when I'm in person with everybody, I can just kind of come around, but with me. We're going to keep them going. Limit or extend limits on debate.
Previous question was?
Previous question is to end debate and to take action on the item that's presented. Okay. So previous question is another one of those things. It's you don't need to you can and it's going to do something to the motion. And what it means is that we're going to take action on this motion right now. So I think what we'll talk about is privilege motions. Privilege motions are kind of some of my favorite motions. And I'll give you some examples of those. So fixed time to which to adjourn. I actually brought the at our work session, the school board. We have a Our agendas have always had a time on them for which time we need to adjourn. So if we say we're going to be done at 7 o'clock on an item and we get to 7 o'clock, what should you do as a body? If you have a meeting and you say you're going to adjourn at 7, but you haven't finished all your business, what do you think you should do?
Gotta finish it.
Okay. Dr. Tatum, I'm going to pick on you because I see you.
You move to extend time?
Move to extend time is correct. There you go. So you would make a motion to extend or fix the time for which you want to adjourn. So we've had some situations like that, and say, you know what, let's move to adjourn at 7:30 rather than 7 o'clock because we want to finish this item. Okay. Now, if you have adjournment on your agenda and you get to 7 o'clock, do you have to adjourn? If you haven't, let's say you, well, I mean, I don't want to confuse you on that one. If you have a fixed time for which to adjourn, so if it says adjournment and it's at 7 o'clock, you adjourn at 7 o'clock. If you just have adjournment on your agenda, you adjourn when you get to adjournment. Understand what I'm saying? So it may take longer, but whenever you get to adjournment, that's when you adjourn. If somebody wants to be sneaky and don't put adjournment there on your agenda, what should you do at the beginning of the meeting?
Move to amend the schedule?
There you go. Exactly. If somebody neglected to put the adjournment down there, don't get yourself caught up in that one. You can move at any point in time to change the schedule, change the agenda in a minute, and add a time there. What's the difference between adjournment and recess?
Adjournment, you're ending, and recess, you're putting it at a break.
Yeah. Say that exactly. If you're having a, you use the time, a pause, you can have a recess. You're not adjourning a meeting. Raised to a question of privilege. I like this one. So it's too hot in here. That's a motion of privilege. It's too cold. Can we turn up the heat? Those are all privilege.
Yeah.
And call for the orders of the day. I love that one. Call for the orders of the day. What does that mean? Call for the orders of the day. All right. So remember I told you 1876, going way, way back. Call for the orders of the day just simply means that we need to get onto the agenda. We need to get back to the agenda. So let's say we somehow strayed off of the agenda. We're supposed to be talking about the upcoming Civic League cookout, but somebody gets up and wants to talk about Ashley's Christmas party, right? You as a member can say, I moved that I like to call for the orders of the day, which means that we need to get back on task onto the agenda, and you have to get back on task on the agenda, okay? Because we all, somebody gets passionate about something, or you get somebody who wants to constantly bring up that one thing. Call for the orders of the day, get us back on task, right? So incidental emotions, these are kind of cool because these are emotions that aren't necessarily related to, and they may have an incident too, but this is business being considered, but not directly modifying any pending motion. Kind of different. So let's see what those things look like. Point of order. What does point of order mean? Calling you out. You've done something that's not in order. Point of order. Appeal from the decision. So just because the person is sitting in the chairmanship, does that mean that they have automatic overarching power over everything?
No.
No. So we talked about those privilege motions. So let's say that, Madam Chair, I raised to a point of privilege. It's a bit hot in here. Can we turn down the air? And the chair says, no. Well, it's hot up in here. So I could then move to appeal the decision of the chair. And to appeal the decision of the chair simply just means this. If you're not going to do it, then I'm going to ask the membership to force you to do it. Okay? Meaning that I've got the other members in the body who agree with me that we need to do this. So you can appeal the decision of the chair. Suspend the rules is something that you do in very, very dire situations, but you may need to suspend the rule because you need to do something, okay? Some people would try to suspend the rules on a quorum, but Robert Rules of Order allows for you, if you do not have a quorum, to still transact business. What do you have to do, however, at your very next meeting?
It has to be ratified at the next meeting.
You are right. Yes. So don't ever think that you're getting stuck into a situation like, oh, we don't have a quorum, but we need to take care of something. You can still move forward with the item. However, it needs to be ratified at the very next meeting of the body. Now, let's say that you had some rogue group that decided to say, hey, we're going to have a meeting. We're going to do X, Y, and Z. Well, whatever happened, you could still call a meeting the very next day and get your membership there and overrule anything that was just done. Okay. But you still have to, got to remember that it has to be ratified, and your bylaw can prevent certain things. So let's say that a purchase needs to happen. Well, that may need to be approved by the whole body. And even if a smaller group that was came about to do the purchase, your bylaws would supersede anything that happens in that and say you can't do that without having a full membership there. Okay. So you got to kind of seek out things that you may do. We talked about division of the assembly. That's when we want to do a head count. Parliamentary inquiry. You may have somebody like myself as a parliamentarian or a lawyer or somebody there, and you may do an inquiry. And you may say, you know, I like to have a parliamentary inquiry, and you can ask about the rules. And also you can request for information. You can be in the middle of anything and say, I request for information or clarity on something. And it doesn't necessarily, and that's no ranking. It doesn't require a second. Those are motions and things that you can do without anybody else necessarily backing you up on it at that particular point. Bring back motions. This is something you want to take off the table. Remember, if we put something on the table, we've got to take it off the table before we leave that meeting. If we don't, then it dies. Rescind or amend something previously adopted or reconsider. Okay, so I'll use an example, and some people may not. I'm not going to get into the politics of it, but I'll just use it as an example because it's real life. Board was talking about changing start time. Anybody remember that? Okay. We were talking about changing school start times, and I voted with the majority at that particular point. There's the reason I voted with the majority. I didn't support it, but it's because in order for me to have a later option of a motion to reconsider once I received more information because I wasn't ready, I moved to vote with the majority. Yes, it's recorded I was there, but when I got more additional information, I then had the ability, because I voted with the majority, to then reconsider the action of the majority. Does that make sense? So I came back to change something that was previously adopted by the board through a motion of reconsideration. And at that time, with the motion of reconsideration, the item then was changed. However, watch that particular meeting. I then voted to reconsider it again in the same meeting within 5 minutes. Why did I do that? Anybody want to take a stab? Okay, so I'm not going to. You can only reconsider an item twice in any legislative session. So for the school board, our legislative sessions are July 1 to June 30th. And because I moved to reconsider an item twice in a meeting in that 1 year, we couldn't talk about it anymore. Remember what I told you about tactics? Or you know the rule, that type of thing? I don't want to keep talking about starting school. So we needed to do other things. So I did it. So some people were probably looking at me like I was crazy going, why is he reconsidering this thing twice? Just because we can't talk about it. Now we're in a new year, we can talk about something all over again. Okay. So that's something for y'all to have. If you don't want somebody to keep bringing it back up, reconsider it twice and it's done. Okay. my one tactical thing for you today. Go ahead. What did you say?
I just want to say again, it comes down to, and unfortunately, he who knows the rules runs the meeting. And if you're not sure what's there or what someone is doing, then they can run the meeting because they know the rules, which is why it's so important that everyone knows what's in the Constitution and bylaws of that particular organization and have, as you are presenting, a understanding of parliamentary procedure, because the majority can run over the minority if you don't know what's going on.
Yep, you are absolutely right. And I'm trying to find my copy. But we have, and I've shared it with you all when I was there. I actually gave somebody a copy, but there's a reference guide I have that I recommend for presiding officers. It's a quick flip open book, Jim, with the tabs, and it has tabs. So if you don't know, or you're kind of like, I have a little bit, but I'm not too sure, you can get to it as a quick reference guide. But as a presiding officer, you really want to understand. And I tell you, my number is on the back of this here. I've had several civic presidents and organization presidents reach out to me. I'm here. I'm a resource. Just as much as I'm serving on the school board, I'm here as a resource to any of you all as well. If you get into like, hey, I don't know what this is, Carlos, can you help me out? I'll be more than happy to do that. And that's free of charge. I don't charge anybody for that stuff.
Yes, Carlos, that was a very helpful tool. Anicia bought a box of them. They're at the office. I don't have them here at home. But yes, if there's Civic League leaders out there that need a copy, we can work on getting them a copy of that tabbed book that you mentioned. It's a good resource.
Great. This is a quick motion guide. I'm going to be updating this because like I told you, Robert Rules of Order now is on the 12th edition and added some things. The thing I love about this is that if you look from left, or when another do that when somebody else has the floor. Does it require a second? Yes. Is it debatable? No. Is it amendable? Yes. What vote is required for it? M just means simple majority. And may it be reconsidered? Yes. Okay. This is a good quick reference guide that is a one-pager that you can have in front of you as a member and as a presiding officer, because these are the things that most likely will come up. So if you see M, it's a majority vote. If you've got 2/3, you've got 2/3. This one has one is telling you that the grant in that one, that the chair grants permission on that one. 2, no vote. This can be a demand, and that's call for the orders of the day. M4 is a majority, but then you have a 4, 2/3 vote required to make a special order. Okay. So those things are there. They're quick reference. There are a lot of things out there that can make it a lot easier for you. So we're at 7. Get back. All right. Any questions from anybody? Okay. Well, my computer wanted to get stuck on me, y'all. Let's see here. There we go. Now the other thing. Okay. I think my computer is ready to go to sleep. All right. Oh, doesn't want to on that one. So, and I really can't even get my my book here. All right. So there you go. We're moving. It's coming back. That one's working. Okay, there we go. We're back. So agenda, this is what should be in a basic agenda. Call the order. If you have opening ceremonies, what might be an opening ceremony for one of you all? Pledge of Allegiance, invocation. If there's a mission or a motto, that might be part of an opening ceremony. Roll call. Why do you do call to order and then you do roll call? Why do you need roll call?
Basically, like
Because you have a quorum.
There you go. It's as simple as it. You need to know if you got a quorum in order to transact business. Reading or approval of the minutes. So this is one of those things we get into it. Do you need a motion to approve minutes?
Not necessarily. You can use a consent agenda.
You're exactly right. If there are no amendments or adjustments to the minutes, they stand accepted. There's no objection to them. You don't really need a motion and a second on that. The other item, officer reports, board sustaining committee reports should be up front. Reports of special committees should be next. Any special orders? Special orders may be presentations. This is one of the things I constantly remind, and when I was the governance trainer for the Virginia School Board Association, I would remind public bodies that the members on that body are the members, okay? Public comment is not something that's necessary, but it's something that's welcomed. And so you have outside presentations, those things should never interfere with the business of the work that you have to take care of. And a lot of times, they may be approved in a consent agenda because they've been sent out ahead of time. That can save time. Have you ever been in a situation where somebody wanted to sit there and read you the minutes? I don't need to hear the minutes because I've already read the minutes. And if you sent the minutes to me ahead, say, hey, I need to make this adjustment. These are all ways of what? Saving time so that you can get in and be really efficient. Unfinished business, as opposed to the wrong word, old business. There's no old business. It's unfinished business. So if you got old business on your agenda, change it to unfinished business. Okay. General orders, but there is new business, any announcements, and if you have a program, let's say that you have someone who comes in and they're doing a presentation or some type of training, you can put that down there. Then adjournment. As a part of your organization, you have that one piece to kind of draw people in, get them there on time, and then you move into the business, and then you can adjourn. Okay, so there's different ways, particularly when you're looking at, community and trying to get folks there and to be there on time. So, what else? Start randomly calling on people, so don't try to turn your camera off because you can still hear. All right, so which motion I use? So, principal Cable, I haven't called on you yet. This is going to be yours. All right. Can you ask for a vote at any time? Can you ask for a vote at any time? What motion would you use?
Oh, good question. I would say no, but so you got to make a motion first before you vote. Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Let's see what we got down here.
Help me out.
Yes. Yes. Can you ask for a vote at any time? What would be the term that we would use? Call the question. Call the question means in debate. I'm ready for us to vote. It's good. Good try. Don't worry. It's all right. So here's the next one. I have an idea I think our board should try. What motion would you use? I have an idea I think our board should try. Okay. So what type of motion would you make? It's a new idea.
I move.
Somebody move?
That was me, Carlos. Credit. Later.
Let's see what we got. Main motion. I move. Yes. All right. So which motion should I use? I could go for this motion if we could just make a little change to it.
Subsidiary?
Okay, what's another?
Amendment.
What's that? Is that Marva?
Amendment. It was stupid. Amendment.
There you go. You on it. There you go. You got it. You got it. All right. Name 3 ways to vote on a motion.
Yes. Carlos, before you go back to that other one, I have been in meetings where the person will say, can I make a friendly amendment and a editorial amendment to a motion? And if the maker of the motion accepts the amendment, it does not have to go through a form.
Through a formal change. Y'all still there?
Yeah.
I see Charlene's buffering. Okay. I know what she's asking for. How many of you have heard of a friendly amendment? Never heard that one? So let's say that Jim is making,
Yeah.
go back to that buy-in, buffer, Charlene. So let's say that we're buying those buses again, okay? And Principal Cable said we're gonna buy some yellow buses. Charlene says, well, I'd like to make a friendly amendment to 10 buses. You know, I'd like to, and because Principal Cable has said, all right, well, you know, I'm the maker of the motion. I think that's pretty good. Yeah, I'll go ahead and say 10 motions. 10 buses, okay? It's all the timing because you are the maker of the motion. You can accept to say, I'll accept that and I'll rephrase my motion to add that in there, okay? Now, you can get another thing where somebody will ask, will you send your motion? Let's get into debate, okay? And you're like, you know what? You don't have the money to do this right now. So I like to rescind my motion, okay? You can rescind your motion, but then the person who seconded your main motion also needs to rescind it in order for it to be clean slate and you can move away from it, okay? But a friendly amendment in small deliberative bodies is very acceptable, okay? And you may hear at school board sometimes I'll say, you know, if my colleague will accept a friendly amendment to this, because we're a small body. Now, you cannot do a friendly amendment on the House floor, General Assembly or anything else like that, because they're much more formal and you can't do that because we're typically talking about a bill or something. But you can do that in small deliberative bodies, such as like your civic, okay? So, name 3 ways to vote on a motion. If I remember.
Yay, nay, and abstain.
I don't know if that's one. That's a good try. That's the
Roll call.
3 ways. Is that the one? Hold up. I don't think that's the one.
By voice?
I don't know. I gave you some ways. Right now.
Roll call.
By
Again?
voice.
All in division.
Counted.
Written
Okay.
ballot.
Yeah. So let's see what we got down here. So we got hand vote, ballot, secret ballot. Now we can't do secret ballot. Who can't do secret ballot, Sean?
Digital.
This electronic. But what bodies can't do secret ballot?
Oh, is it? No.
Yo, you're right. Government elected cannot do secret ballot. Why can't we do ballot?
Because you're elected
by the public.
Exactly. And in Virginia, we got sunshine laws. So there's FOIA and all these other things. So you can't do anything in secret. We're a public body, public facing. And even when we have like executive closed session, those things, when you have a public body that goes into executive closed session, it's typically so that you can talk about legal matters, talk about personnel. And one of the biggest reasons go in a closed session with personnel is, let's say that we're looking to hire somebody who has applied for a job, and let's just say that the board decides that they don't agree with the decision of this recommendation, where the board could vote it down. But let's say that this person is still working for somebody else, and we come out in public meeting and put that person's name out there. That wouldn't be good for business, because then we wouldn't probably get people who would want to try to come to our division. So there's reasons why you do things. It's not to be secretive, but we're trying to protect people, in the process. But secret ballot, so that's even when we have reorg, and for like the school board, we do a voice vote on who we vote for chair and vice chair. And that's very open. You know, it's like, well, who you vote for? I vote for me. So call it a day. Roll call. And electronic. Which use? I will be waiting on this vote until John and Chris can be here. I know they're going to come to the next meeting. There's no good reason why we can't wait until then. What type of motion would this be? Anybody?
Move to postpone the vote.
Or did
Move to postpone the vote.
Ooh. Very close. Postpone to a set time. Yes. I said if we were in the room, this would be my point where I would give you something, but I can't today. So Jim is going to give you a book.
I'll take it.
So what I said, what is said following a motion so that the item can be considered? What is said following a motion so that the item may be considered?
Second.
I second the motion. And then considered is the important piece because if this said what is said following a motion, you know, the chair has to say that a motion does what? Taking a vote, the chair has to announce what? That a motion passes or a motion fails. Okay, that's important. That's the conclusion. That's how you know that something's done. And it's what should the chair say after stating a motion? So the chair has restated the motion. We have a motion to buy 10 school buses. It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any question or discussion? No discussion. All right. Nowhere. Sometimes I think some of these people just talk to hear themselves. Let's give this a vote taken now. I'm quite sure none of y'all have that experience before. We've used talking just to hear themselves. Let's get to this vote taken now. Let's take this vote now.
Call for the question.
Table.
The previous question. What is the proper way to address the chair?
Madam, sir, whatever title they're holding.
Cap, President, Madam, Sir, President, who are you going? What are we arguing about? Why are we arguing about now? We don't have enough information. We need to get a group together to look into this matter. So what type of motion would you use here?
Move to committee.
Considering?
You got it. Refer to committee.
Oh, refer to committee. Okay.
Refer to committee. The key word in there was to get a small group of people together. Okay. And what is the minimum number of members must be present at business? What is that term called?
Quorum.
It is a quorum. And who decides what your quorum is?
Your group? Your governing body.
Yep, and your governing body and your governing documents. The bylaws would typically determine what a quorum is. Damage. What would you move? What type of motion would you do to handle this? You don't want to touch it. So what's that term? We talked about it way in the beginning. We want to postpone it. What? Postpone it
Indefinitely.
Yep. I'm going to touch it again. This is done. Okay. Or object to the question. This is another one of my favorite words. I still pride myself. I was my senior year. It was my last national conference with the Technology Student Association. And I got on the floor of the national convention and I raised an objection to the question of consideration. That was a proud moment. This is crazy. We don't need to be even talking about this. Do this before you Okay. And when you do an objection or consideration, you're directing it directly to the chair to say, hey, don't take that up. You need to make the decision. Okay. And if the chair says, change the decision of the chair.
Appeal the decision of the chair.
You got it. Thank you. All right. What is the correct way? We've talked about this. I'm just reinforcing this. Is it so moved? What is it? The correct way to introduce a motion.
I move that.
Move that or move to. Okay. What is the correct acclamation for a negative voice vote? That's a good one. Is it no?
Nay.
Actually, it could be no or nay. It depends on what you all. If you say yay, nay, they sound real close, don't they? And if you got to they sound really close. Yay, nay. So that's why you normally have aye or nay. So there's a clear delineation. So nay or no. And that was it. Jeopardy. So professional development, like with your teams or anything, I'll be more than happy to come out and help support. But I do have a Jeopardy board that I can do electronically and kind of break into teams and after we've gone through this. But it's a lot of information. And I have done literally, I could do and when we were together a year ago, I think my opening activity was to have you all put the items of the agenda in order. And that was interesting. Some of y'all thought the order the items there. But like I said here on this next, the lose y'all? Okay. As I had mentioned here, there's my contact. You can reach out to me. And my number's there, my email, free. Yeah, we can do that. And we have a poll.
I'm sorry, Carlos. I thought you were done, so I took it back to run the poll.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
I wanted to catch people before they leave. But yes, we will. I have all your emails. If you're here, I have your email. So I will put Carlos's contact information in that and send them all to you. We do so greatly appreciate this. It was good to see some of you. You mentioned Dr. Tatum. I just saw Dr. Tatum's name in an email today from the Estabrook Coleman Place Civic League. So that was kind of cool to see you. And thank you so much. Are there any more questions for Carlos?
Did you all learn something today? Was it refreshing? Okay.
It was great.
Carlos, actually, it was very good.